How's it rockin', Dween Nation? This is the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, or share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, and yes, it's just me today, but we're discussing some March Madness early predictions. It is February 1st. Obviously, Selection Sunday isn't until, March 16th or 15th. So we're a little bit around a month and a half away. But hey, why not do some early predictions based on kind of what we're looking at through the season thus far? As you can see, there's a bracket here based on the KenPom bracketology. So everybody loves some KenPom. That is the basis that we use to rank teams and everything like that. So let's do some predictions today. I'll help you out, Dween Nation. And obviously, we're going to make another one, maybe even another one of these, so it can help you when March Madness comes and you need to set your lineups and your picks and predictions. But let's start in the East. We got Duke and Marist. I candidly don't know a lot about Marist, but I know about Duke and I know about Cooper Flagg, and he has been awesome this year. And I got Duke moving on in the first round. UConn, West Virginia. Crazy to see UConn being an 8 seed after winning March Madness 2 years in a row. So I'm just gonna go with UConn though. I'm gonna give them that March Madness. They got the experience. Dan Hurley's great. So UConn moves on. That'd be a really great round 2 matchup. Then we got Illinois and George Mason, and Illinois has been on fire as of late. They are everything that you want to see out of a March Madness kind of team in the Big Ten. I mean, they are great. They have the 18th ranked KenPom, and I know Illinois has usually been letting us down in March Madness, but first round, you got to give it to them against George Mason. Then we got Mississippi State and Yale, and obviously I believe it was Yale last year that had a really good run. But Mississippi State, to me, has looked really solid this year. They're not a team that I think just has super off nights. I think they've been in contention with a lot of games all year, especially in the SEC. So I'm going to go with Mississippi State to move on there. Then we got Michigan and Oklahoma, and I've watched some Oklahoma games because I am an Aggie, so we've gone back to against them a couple of times, and they've been all right. It hasn't been super great, but the SEC has been stacked this year, and it makes me kind of want to lean towards OU, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with Michigan and the Wolverines. They're back in the tournament. Then we got Kansas and Jacksonville State. Kansas has been kind of shaky as of late, but I'm going to roll with them. Clemson and Ohio State. Ohio State's been weird. I've seen them have some really big wins, but also some really big losses thus far in the season. But I'm going to go with the upset there. I think that they pull out over Clemson. I know Clemson had a good run last year, but I'm going to go with Ohio State. Then I'm going to go with Florida. I think Florida is going to run in this March Madness tournament. They're going to be great. Then we move to the West. We got Iowa State and Nebraska Omaha. Iowa State's been one of the best teams in college basketball, so I'm going to go with them. Gonzaga and Vanderbilt. I believe Gonzaga has not lost in the first couple of rounds in many, many years now. I think at least the last 5-6 years, they have not lost super early, so I'm going to go with them to win. Then we got Memphis and Drake. Drake has been a team that people have predicted to make some upsets in March Madness the last, I think, couple of years, and they haven't got it done. But in this matchup against Memphis, I think they match up pretty well. I'm going to go with Drake. Drake's going to slow the ball down and make some big plays, and they move on. They're the first big upset I have. Texas A&M and Samford. Obviously, I just mentioned I go to Texas A&M, but there's no bias here. I'm going to be unbiased. I am going with the Aggies, though. They candidly, they are a team that loves to start slow in games, and they always chip their way back into it. That's not a recipe for deep playoff runs, but early on they're going to get a W here against Samford. Samford's a really good team as well. Then we got Texas Tech and Texas. Texas Tech has been really good this year, actually. I know they have one of the toughest schedules in all of college basketball. They're the 11th hardest. And Texas has been kind of underwhelming. They've gotten some good wins. They just beat Texas A&M last weekend. But I'm going to go with Texas Tech to win that one there. Then we got Michigan State and UNC Asheville. Michigan State always, to me, is a team that underwhelms as of late, as of the last handful of years. Ooh, this makes me kind of want to do an upset with UNC Asheville, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go with Michigan State. Then we got St. John's and UNC. I'm going with St. John's. Rick Pitino. They've had some close games in the first round over the last few years. Rick Pitino led teams, and I think that this time they get over the hump. Tennessee wins, they move on there. Then we got the South. We got Auburn and Morehead State. We go with Auburn. Utah State and Baylor. Baylor's been a team that's always been known to get good wins in March Madness. I'm going to go with them with that pedigree they have. Louisville and McNeese State. This is a tough one because McNeese State was a team also that was highly regarded last year, and they thought that, hey, they might make a run, but they ended up losing in the first round. Wow, this is a tough one because Louisville's been pretty solid this year. What do I want to do this early in March Madness? Do I want to give them that? You know what? I'm going to go with McNeese State here to get the victory. Another 12 seed is moving on. Oregon and Utah Valley. Oregon's been weirdly off and on as well. So I'm going to go with Oregon, though. Yeah, they've had some good wins this year. Maryland and UCF. Maryland's been really good. They had a big win, too, the other night. I'm going to go with Maryland. Kentucky and Northern Colorado. Kentucky's a strange team. To me, I do trust them more, weirdly enough, now with Mark Pope than the last few years with John Calipari. I was like, they were always going to fall short. You know, last year they had really good talent, too. They had Reed Shepherd, Rob Dillingham, and they lost early. But I'm going to go with them in the first round. UCLA and Georgia. Georgia's been solid. UCLA, I'm going to go with UCLA, get the victory there. Then Houston has been on fire. I don't even need to look at Towson. No. We'll go with Houston there to move on. Alabama and Southern. Alabama is like one of the fastest teams in the history of college basketball. They are like scoring at an all-time rate. Their defense is so-so, but their offense is great, and that led them to a really good run last year. So I'll start them off with a victory there. Then we got St. Mary's and Creighton. This is really one of the toughest matchups. Obviously, it's an 8 and 9. Ooh, this is really tough. St. Mary's plays it slow, as does Creighton a little bit. I'm going to go with Creighton to get the victory there over St. Mary's. Arizona and Arkansas State. Arizona, I'm going to go with. They had a tough loss, or they had a good win. They beat Iowa State earlier this week. It was a buzzer beater, I believe, or close to the buzzer. But I'm going to go with Arizona there. Wisconsin and Akron. I'm going to go with Akron with a big upset here. Wisconsin just doesn't do it for me. They haven't done it in the last few years, and it's just, I'm not for it. Ole Miss and UC Irvine. I'm going to go with another upset. UC Irvine. They've been really inching close in the last few March Madnesses, and I'm going to go with them to get a big victory over Ole Miss Rebels. Purdue and Cleveland State. I'm going to go with Purdue. Missouri and Pittsburgh. I'm not a big Missouri guy this year, and I'm SEC guy. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh to get the victory there. And Marquette and Bryant. I'm also not a huge Marquette believer. They usually kind of fall short, but I'll give them the win in the first round. Then we'll move back to the top. Duke and UConn. I'm going to go with Duke to get the victory there. Duke's one of my favorites in this tournament. Obviously, they're the top number 1 seed. Illinois and Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Illinois to get the victory there. Michigan and Kansas. This is a tough one. Obviously, it's Dickinson versus his old team, which is super interesting. I'm going to go with Kansas, though. Pull that one out. Ohio State and Florida. Give me Florida. Sorry, guys. I know there's only one upset thus far to make it to the Elite Eight, or to the Sweet 16. Iowa State and Gonzaga. Ooh, I could see some things going wrong for Iowa State here, but I'm gonna go with I'll go with Iowa State. Drake and Texas A&M. I'll go with the Aggies. Texas Tech and Michigan State. I'm gonna go with Tech. That's a rematch of an older March Madness championship. St. John's and Tennessee. Tennessee. Last year, I thought the same thing I thought about them this year. But they made a really good run. Auburn and Baylor, I'll go with Auburn. McNeese State and Oregon. I need to have some upsets in here. I'm going to go with McNeese State to move on. We got a 1 versus 12. Maryland and Kentucky. Give me Maryland to do that. Upset Kentucky there. Kentucky's inconsistencies on defense is going to cost them at some point in this tournament. Houston and UCLA. I'll go with Houston. Obviously, Houston had that really great second round matchup with my Aggies last year, and they barely pulled it out. But UCLA is not the team the Aggies were last year. Bama and Creighton, I'll go with Bama. Arizona is going to beat Akron, stop that run. Purdue and UC Irvine. Ooh, I'm going to go with Purdue to move on. And then I'm actually going to have an upset here with Pittsburgh moving on over Purdue to get us a 10 versus 3, a 1 versus 5. Then we got Duke back up to the top. Duke and Illinois. I'm going with the Duke Blue Devils to win there. And I'm going to go with Florida over Kansas to get us a 1 versus 2 in the Elite Eight. Then we got Iowa State and A&M. Give me the Aggies to move on over Iowa State. I think this is where A&M's, that's kind of their Super Bowl, kind of their championship. They're going to get a big win over a number 1 seed. Texas Tech and Tennessee. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders. Get them moving on. A&M versus Texas Tech. That should be a really good game. I think they play each other next year, too, in basketball, so that works out. Auburn and McNeese State. I'm going to go with Auburn to move on and Houston to move on. So 2 1s, 2 2s. Bama and Arizona. They're both teams that light it up on offense, and they're not so much there on the defensive side. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Bama. Keep the ones there. And then Purdue and Pittsburgh. This game is going to be something. It depends when Purdue gets hot. If they get hot at the end of February and early March, I'm going to be excited about them because sometimes they fall off. I'm going to go with Purdue to move on to the Elite Eight and get us Purdue and Bama. And then we got Duke and Florida. This would be tough for Duke because to me, the other 2 seeds like Tennessee, Houston's pretty good, and then Marquette. Duke would want to draw Florida to me the least. Florida's one of the best to me this deep in the playoff. I'm going to go with Duke, though, to move on. A&M and Texas Tech. I'm going to go with I feel like I've been giving A&M a lot of love. What do I want to do here? Let's see. Let's look at their KenPom rankings this season. Tech's at 11. Wow, that's pretty good. And A&M's at 16. I'll go with Texas Tech to get the upset. Move on to the Final Four. Auburn and Houston. I'm going to go with Houston. I feel like this is the year for teams that have coaches that have been there for a while and they haven't pulled it off, like Ryan Day at Ohio State. And Kelvin Sampson has been kind of the same story. They've always had great teams, but haven't been able to pull it off in March. But I think that they're going to get a big win there over Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers. Houston moves on, and then we got Bama and Purdue. I'm going to have to go with Bama. Then we move down here, if you guys can see, the Final Four. Duke versus Texas Tech. Houston versus Bama. Let's go Houston, and let's go Duke. And I'm going to go with Duke, though, to win the championship, win March Madness. I know the number 1 player in college basketball that goes on to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft has not won the championship in decades, right? Yeah, since Anthony Davis, like a decade and some change. But I think Cooper Flagg and this Duke team, they actually have a lot of good veterans, players that have been there for more than a year that I think usually Duke is surrounded by freshmen, as like Kentucky is known for doing that. But Duke's got that star, Cooper Flagg, and then it's got some really good players surrounding him. And Duke wins the championship, first one without Coach K. But yeah, I think this is going to be – there's some really good teams in March Madness this year. The way the SEC's looking, the way the Big Ten's looking. I think the next one I might have to have a few more upsets throughout. But just the first one to start off in February. Today is February 1st that I'm recording. We're going to have a couple more of these because these are fun to roll through. But Dween Nation, thank you guys for listening. If you're interested in Super Bowl talk, we got it. If you're interested in basketball talk, we got it. If you're interested, surprisingly enough, I got some WWE Royal Rumble predictions today. We got it. We got it all. And if you want us to talk about anything else, we can do that because I watch just about every sport that the sun touches. So thank you guys for listening. We got Duke. We got a Final Four of Duke, Texas Tech, Houston, and Bama. Give me your comments. Give me your thoughts. And thank you guys for listening. And as always, peace.